Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Here we are. This is our takeout. My takes on all things considerable. You come in, I give you some takes. Just got kind of a little discombobulated. I was reading something, and this is a kind of an interesting thing because this is what happens. You go on the media, and you get popular, and then if you have the gumption, you run for office. And so I'm reading here, reported by Axios, that former CNN anchor John Avlon, who's also a journalist, he's Democrat, right? Left-leaning Democrat, former editor of the Daily Beast, I believe, and former CNN anchor John Avlon, running for Congress in New York's first district. Of course. I mean, you don't know how frustrating it is if you're smart as John Avlon and you see someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene take over Congress, or you see someone like Ocasio-Cortez, who's not bad, but she's a kid, and with her other. Okay, I don't mean to be either misogynist or be patronizing, but where was her activism? I mean, I'm just saying that people run for office, they get in, they have some kind of youth patina, female, feminine patina. I don't know what John Avlon's thing is. I mean, he was on CNN, so he's going to be seen as, popular news guy, but the people love news guys. I mean, that's going to be the thing. There's going to be a crowded field of Democrats going for this, going to unseat a first-term Republican. But if you think you've got he's going to go after Nick LaLota. I don't know who Nick LaLota is, who's a GOP guy, but everyone thinks he's beatable. So here come all these Democrats, and if you've got name recognition like John Avlon, then okay, that presumes that people watch CNN and people are voting there in the first congressional district. But it doesn't surprise me that he's doing that. I thought about doing that. And my wife always says, look, Emil, you'd love giving speeches. You'd love going up on the stump. You'd love campaigning, kissing babies. I don't even know if I'd like that. But, you like that fun part. But, I was in politics for a little bit. I was I worked on the Hill. I was the press secretary. I know the dynamic, press, the boss, the message. And I didn't like it. So, you got to do what you love, right? And good luck to John Avlon. I hope he wins. His wife is a Republican, right? She's a Republican, a right-leaning host on PBS. So this is what happens. Media and politics mix, merge. And when people start looking around for open seats and say, hey, here's a seat for me, boom. But it's a crowded seat. I make it. Hey, so that just grabbed my attention. I wanted to jump on it. Another thing that grabbed my attention, I wrote the piece I wrote on Shane Gillis. Look, Shane Gillis is always going to be an Asian American story. I subtitle this show WDAAT. What does an Asian American think? Is they rarely ask us. And so I say this is the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs, but it's really, that's my perspective, that's my bent, but it's for everyone. I'm talking in English, so you know what I'm talking about. But Shane Gillis hosting Saturday Night Live is going to be an issue until, he shows up. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't think a lot of people are upset about it. I don't even know if I'm upset about it, because as I wrote in my Inquirer.net piece it's the Philippine media, I wrote in my column there, I said Shane Gillis's penance, 27 million Our Fathers and Hail Marys. I mean, I'm not really ready to see him come back. yet. I think it 5 years. He's doing well. Does he need to come back to Saturday Night Live after he got kicked off 5 years ago? You can see my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, or you can see it on Inquirer.net. The one on Inquirer.net, I wrote right after I came back from doing about a 5-minute stand-up set at the Hollywood Improv. And this is where I gain my empathy, right? I have empathy for what Shane Gillis is going through because I know how hard it is to get a laugh. It's different from the kind of solo one-man theater shows I do, and I've got one coming up March 2nd through 9th at the Rogue Festival in Fresno. Get your tickets at roguefestival.org. If you're in Fresno, I'm not saying, Emil, you made me drive all the way to Fresno, and I'm here in Eureka. No, I'm not making you drive to Fresno if you don't want to drive to Fresno. I'm saying I'm going to be there March 2nd through 9th. And then I'm going to be in New York, April 5th to the 21st at the New York City Fringe. Doing my one-man show, Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, a new version, Married to PETA, fun show about Filipino Americans. But here's the thing, stand-up, when I did the 5-minute version of what I do, stand-up is pure crack. It's the concentrated Emil experience. And so I told jokes about Filipinos and people laughed, and that's great. But then someone came up afterwards and told a joke about Filipinos, and they weren't Filipinos, and Filipinos were the punchline. And I noticed it. And I didn't think it was funny, and I didn't even bother to go up to tell the guy anything. I just said, we're at a show where there's a Filipino, me. There was some balance, and that was okay. I just think the point is, I didn't want to censor the guy. And people can see, okay, it's a joke because here's a Filipino who's joking. It would be better if the Filipino were joking. So that was the stance I took. And it's important in the Shane Gillis context, because Shane Gillis was telling jokes about Chinese people. He's not Chinese. It's hurtful. It's hateful. It's not funny. That's what he did 5 years ago. That's what he should be doing as penance. 27 million Our Fathers and Hail Marys. That's 27 million, one for every Asian American in America. But maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay for him to just 5 years is enough. So says Saturday Night Live. They're getting him back. And because for selfish reasons, for SNL, I mean, Shane Gillis is hot. He's a hot comic right now. But I just want to go back to the kind of crime, if it's a crime, it was a hurtful joke, right? So I heard this hurtful joke when I was doing my set at the Hollywood Improv about Filipinos. And I let it go because I'm not the comic cop. I'm not the guy, I'm not the PC police. In fact, my stand on the First Amendment is more speech, not less. But that means you better have some Filipinos in there. You better have some Chinese people in there. And I think maybe that's why SNL feels comfortable, because they've got Bowen Yang. And Bowen Yang he's Mr. Everything. He's multi-talented. I don't even think he's American. I think he's like Asian Australian or something, right? Or Asian Canadian. He's from one of the English-speaking countries. But he's not Asian American. And he's gay. So he covers all the bases. And he plays everything on the show. He plays white guys. He plays... And look, I don't mind it when Bowen Yang disses Filipinos. I mean, he doesn't diss them, but he played a Filipino, for goodness sake. He's Asian, at least. All right, so I thought I would forgive Bowen Yang for that. But then I saw a comedy show named after, well, a comedian fronted, very famous. And he's been borderline on Asian American jokes. And I thought to go after him a couple of years ago. I didn't. Everyone else did. But I take the position, more speech, not less. He paid his dues. He was canceled for briefly, but he's come back strong, stronger than ever. And he's got this one Asian guy who tells this joke. And, I just said that it's cool if Bowen Yang tells these Filipino jokes or is a Filipino. That's the thing. Bowen Yang is a Filipino. But there was this guy, he gets up, he tells a joke, and he tells a joke about abortion. And it's kind of crazy. It's not a funny joke. But he says, and this is a direct quote, I think abortion is pretty cool. Men have been killing things for years. It's time the ladies took a crack at it to start with fetuses and work their way up to Filipinos. And when I heard that, I said, oh, that's not funny. Is it? I mean, is my free speech meter, or is it off? Is it funny to say, I think abortion is pretty cool. Men have been killing things for years. It's time the ladies took a crack at it. They could start with fetuses and work their way up to Filipinos. So I don't know. I think that's just, well, that's racist. That's a racist joke. Filipinos? You could have said anybody. How about making fun of yourself? How about saying, they can start with Koreans. Start with me. That would have been funnier. You wouldn't have been dragging in Filipinos with you. I mean, as long as you make yourself the joke, I think it's fine. But in terms of free speech, now what are you saying? You're saying, hey, I repeat the joke again. I think abortion is pretty cool. Men have been killing things for years. It's time the ladies took a crack at it. Start with fetuses, work their way up to Filipinos. I mean, I guess it could be funny if he didn't really mean to kill, well, he meant to kill fetuses, right? There's babies. But is the exaggeration beyond acceptable exaggeration? Say, yeah, let's kill the Filipinos. I mean, it's not like Shakespeare saying, let's kill all the lawyers. And the fact that he's Asian, does that excuse him? For some reason, when I heard that joke, I couldn't excuse him. But like I said, I don't mean to censor him. I've just repeated his joke. I don't mean to call him out. I just mean to say, look, if you're going to say those things, I'm not for censorship. I'm for more speech, not less. And that means, let's talk about that joke and why it's offensive and why it should be avoided. I mean, if you still believe in taste, look, like I said, I'm not the PC police, but people put those jokes out there, and I know Asian Americans, when they consider things like Shane Gillis, issues like Shane Gillis, they say, when do we stop being the punchlines? Which is a good question. When do we stop being the punchlines? I don't know. I think we stop being the punchlines when we gain the respect, get in the field. Like I said, 8 years ago, Ali Wong was saying some outrageously raunchy, not necessarily racist stuff, but raunchy stuff. And now look at her. Serious Emmy Award winning actress. But we're represented. Look at us, with the Oscar winning Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, we have come a long way from Charlie Chan, and that's why what Shane Gillis did 5 years ago was offensive, because essentially that's what he did. He did a ching chong kind of thing that he should have known better. I mean, that's why Shane Gillis is still top of mind, especially when he goes on a show like Saturday Night Live, which is it's a cultural icon, right? It is a cultural icon in America. And if it goes there, it says something. There's a kind of acceptance. But one thing I don't like about that is that, well, people see it there, and then the green lights go off all over. And once the professionals stop using it, all the people underneath start using it, and then you start seeing it become a thing. We don't need it to become a thing. Filipinos, a new Polish joke. Maybe the Poles, like that. Or maybe we should just, it's okay. People have license when the joke is on themselves. If a Filipino is telling a Filipino joke, that was my lesson the other day, or how I dealt with it. But like I said, when I heard a Filipino joke in the room after my set, I said, I don't know if I like that. But I was there for balance, so that was cool. There was no one else on that show that this Korean comic was on to balance out what was said. Anyway, read my Shane Gillis column. It's on Inquirer.net, and if you just Google my name, Emil Guillermo, and Shane Gillis, you'll see where it's popped up. It's been picked up by some MSN sites and things like that. Anyway, all right, so some things I got just upset about. I was talking about the Barbara Lee. I'm rooting for Barbara Lee. And I'm curious why she isn't doing well. I know why she isn't doing better than she is, and it's because she doesn't have the money. No one knows that she's running even. I mean, Adam Schiff has his ads, and he chooses not to attack his Democratic opponents because he doesn't want to give them the benefit of his ads. So he goes after Steve Garvey, who's the lone Republican out of the 4 people in the race. And that way, Garvey hasn't spent, I don't think he spent anything. I think Garvey just takes advantage of the fact that he's mentioned by Adam Schiff. And so he's, in the polls, he's third just by virtue of, he's either second or third. Yeah, Schiff is leading Garvey, and Katie Porter is third. It's a real close battle, Garvey and Katie Porter. But Katie Porter was upset because if Schiff doesn't mention Garvey, Garvey would be like, he'd be like third or fourth. And Schiff and Porter, the 2 folks who've raised more than $1 million, that's why people know about them, because they've been able to buy the ads. Barbara Lee has been number 4 since the race started, and she just hasn't raised any money. And that's the problem with this race. And that's why it's a little disingenuous for Katie Porter to say, oh, I don't believe in big money. I don't believe in earmarks, but she gets her campaign dollars big campaign dollars from a lot of people. Maybe it's not the corporatists, but she plays the money game. Barbara Lee has got to play the populace, people of color game, which isn't providing her with much money. And so she's trailing even the unqualified Republican Steve Garvey, who's the empty baseball suit running for Senate. I saw that yesterday. I've seen, let's see, I've seen three debates now. This is the third and final one. I missed the second one. I saw the first one. I saw this one. And I will say this. I thought it was a terrible debate. Choppy, didn't really pinpoint some things, too evasive. You get a format, and I've done debates. I've covered them. I've also moderated them. And I know what it's like when you say time. When you're more concerned with time, it says one thing. It's too restrictive. There's no way. And then you ask a major question like, how are you going to solve inflation? You have 30 seconds. Oh my God. Are you for real? Oh, tell me about homelessness. You have 30 seconds. You can't take that kind of debate seriously. And then it seemed like they were always going in order of Porter, some variation of Porter, and then Schiff. Barbara Lee rarely got any. I mean, no advantage. I mean, I guess they're trying to be fair to everyone, but it did seem like she was always on the short end. I will say this in terms of pure rhetorical firepower, they all seemed a little choppy. Garvey, empty suit, full of platitudes. Schiff, a little stiff. Porter has an annoying sound that is not. I mean, she says she gets out her whiteboard and says she's going to fight for you, but I don't know. I don't find her very appealing, just in terms of, visceral reaction to her sound. Barbara Lee, I thought, was choppy. I don't think she was as smooth. So I thought they all had problems in trying to navigate this straitjacket of a debate. If I were you, I would see the first one that was done by Fox 11 in LA. That was a good debate. If you can go to YouTube, find that one, because that really pinpoints the differences. Porter's not for earmarks, and the others who are more professional politicians who know how this game is played, they're for earmarks. Even Barbara Lee, Adam Schiff, Garvey's clueless. Garvey doesn't know what he's doing. Garvey doesn't even know if he's going to vote for Trump or Biden. He won't say. But it was, the other debates were clearly intended to show stark differences. And if you had to see one debate, the first one was the best one. The second one, so-so. This was, I think, a little too choppy for my taste and a little too restrictive. I mean, how is anyone going to come up with any kind of plan when you give them 30 seconds, 45 seconds? That's not enough time. So I was also interested in how Spanish played here, because they had a Telemundo anchor who was talking about the border, and she kept trying to get the Congress people, the people serving now, to take responsibility, saying it was their fault that we have what we have now, which I thought was unfair. I mean, especially how she raised the issue to Barbara Lee. She said, Barbara Lee, do you bear any responsibility with what's happening on the border? Well, no, she's trying to change things. Meanwhile, she asks Adam Schiff, and what is your opinion, Mr. Schiff? I mean, very differential. I thought that was, I noticed that. Am I the only one who noticed that? And then, of course, Porter. I think one question, a big question like immigration, they forgot to ask Porter. They were so into the time frame. Oh, we got to get through the time. Got to get through the time. So, as someone who has done a debate as a moderator, you know it's too tight a straitjacket when you're always saying time. Sorry, sir, that you've run out of time. The best debates allow for people to finish their sentence, allow for some room, and last night's debate was not. Unfortunately, the person who was trying to score the most, who had more ground to make up, was Barbara Lee, which is why she came out with much more personal responses, saying things like, hey, I've been homeless. I've been, a single mother of two. I'm the daughter of a World War II and Korean War veteran. I know what it takes to make life better for everyone in California. I have faced so many obstacles. She has. She's overcome. I mean, she's not. I mean, I just think Barbara Lee is so better qualified to be U.S. Senator. And I blame Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom painted himself in the corner when he said he was going to appoint a black woman. And then he didn't want to upset the traditional Democrats. He didn't want to go against Schiff. He didn't want to go against Porter, the two leading money raisers. So he went after Lee in this passive way by appointing LaFonza Butler, who says she's not going to run, which is great. But boy, if he had just simply said, look, I made a promise, I'm going to appoint Barbara Lee. She was ready, because LaFonza Butler was just a person out of left field, a name out of the hat to be a caretaker. If Newsom had said, I'm going to appoint a black woman, a qualified black woman, to serve as senator, because we don't have any women, we don't have any blacks, African Americans in the Senate. I mean, in great number. Would that have been unfair? I think it would have been totally fair. It would have given Barbara Lee an advantage, perhaps, but who knows? Adam Schiff's coming up with big bucks, so is Katie Porter. It would have evened out the advantage money-wise that those two candidates have on Barbara Lee. And it would have given her a fighting chance to win the Senate seat. So, what I also don't like is that Katie Porter, goes after traditional Democrats. She may not be a traditional Democrat, but she's playing a traditional Democrat game. I mean, she's the alternative to Schiff, who is the traditional Democrat. But she's a lot more traditional than Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee, I think, also had some problems when she had to defend what's going on in Oakland, the crime there. Not all her fault. I mean, that's kind of a local thing. But she's the congressman of that area. What is she going to do to help alleviate all the crime fear that exists there for business people, for consumers going out on the street? I know it's really changed my pattern, how I go to Oakland, do up Oakland. I don't. And I loved Oakland, worked in Oakland, lived and worked in Oakland for a while, and now write about Oakland. So that's a problem. And the only way that Barbara Lee can now, I think, make up, because she's got to finish in the top two. And that is if she gets a lot of viral stuff out there. If you support Barbara Lee, get some stuff on social media to generate some buzz, get her up there. This idea of a $50 minimum wage might be a good thing, but I don't know. it got sort of knocked down as not being practical yesterday night. But you got March Super Tuesday. So we have a little time, not much, but Barberly's got to surge because there's no more debates, no more side by side comparisons. But I think we've seen the side by side comparisons. And Schiff is the traditionalist. Katie Porter, school teacher, professor, means well, not very practical. Barbara Lee, totally practical, totally representing people of color, women of color. And I think there's a diversity of the Democratic Party right there. And if they split the Democrats, in comes Steve Garvey to take second place, and then becomes a runoff. Schiff, Garvey, in the general, unless someone pulls away and gets the majority. I think then there's no top two runoff. Anyway, so it could be a runaway for Schiff if Porter and Lee don't do something to get in that race. Because I think it's true. If it were one of the ladies against Schiff, I don't think Schiff would do as well. And so, makes sense. Schiff in his ads brings up Garvey, helping Garvey. Garvey comes up and he has essentially built up the straw man that he punches down. It's a nice strategy for Schiff. It works for him, but not if you're a Lee supporter or a Katie Porter supporter. All right, so that's it for. I mean, the other thing that got me going this morning. You see Donald Trump telling the world how he is the victim, how he is Alexei Navalny, how America is becoming Russia, a communist state, a dictatorship. This is so strange. It's like, I'm sure we're all smart enough to see through this, right? I'm sure we are, right? But there's some people out there say, yeah, look at what they're doing to Trump. They're ripping him apart. The poor man, he's persecuted. This is American. He's American Navalny, which is like, I wanted to barf. To call Trump American Navalny is that. You would get an F in your history assignment if you were to make that claim in a reputable political science or history department. I mean, you can argue it, but you'd lose the argument. Donald Trump is not the American Navalny. Donald Trump has all the modern convenience of democracy. He's free to roam. He's free to run for president, even though he's charged with 91 felonies. He's free to do all this. He wouldn't be able to do that if he were in Russia. American Navalny? No. Donald Trump is not the American Navalny. If someone says, hey, Donald Trump is the American Navalny, I mean, just... Okay, don't slap him, but just give it air slap. Air slaps. Hey, bring out the smelling salts. And say, are you for real? Donald Trump is not the American Navalny, okay? What the hell are you thinking? That's like the world is upside down. Up is down, left is right. God's the devil. I mean, really. Donald Trump, the American Navalny, he's on Fox saying that last night. Everyone's jumping on it this morning saying, what? What is he saying? Donald Trump is not the victim. I'm the victim. But see, I know not to say that because that's very unbecoming. But Donald Trump, for a white guy to say I'm the victim, oh, everyone loves that. Of course, yes, the whites are the victims. But real victims, if we claim victimhood, oh my God, we get criticized. You're not the victim. Everyone loves Filipinos. Even that Korean comic who said that, after fetuses, they should work, abortionists should work their way up to Filipinos. I'm telling you. All right. I mentioned this briefly yesterday about how SCOTUS decided not to intervene in the admissions policy at a very selective public high school, Thomas Jefferson in Northern Virginia. That's because Thomas Jefferson wanted to do more to further affirmative action. It was challenged by some Asian Americans who claimed that Thomas Jefferson High School discriminates against Asian and Asian American applicants. I'm glad the Supreme Court kind of said no, because this is not, this shows that the Supreme Court is sane. They were crazy when they ruled and said Harvard's policy discriminates against Asian Americans, and that was enough. They realize they went too far there, so now they're holding back before hearing other cases that tried to challenge schools' attempts to try to diversify their student bodies, when sometimes Asian and Asian American applicants are offended by the things that are done to balance the racial mix of a school. If the SCOTUS, if the Supreme Court had said, yeah, we'll take the case, and tried to stamp that Harvard decision on these elite high schools, it would have been terrible. And I think Roberts and some of the other conservative justices realize, yeah, we're good. We're not going to rule on another anti-affirmative action, anti-diversity plan at the secondary school level. We're not going to do it. Meanwhile, two other conservatives, Alito and Clarence Thomas, they were ready to go. Hey, we did it for Harvard. We could do it here. We can get rid of all this racist stuff against Asian and Asian American applicants. No, what they're trying to do at Thomas Jefferson High is trying to even it out. Just like people hated all white schools that were, predominantly white, claiming that was racist. Well, of course, a school that's 50, 60, 40% Asian, something's out of whack. At a public school? Now, maybe you can get away with that at Harvard, but the SCOTUS cracked the whip and said, Harvard, you can't do that. So I didn't know what it was going to look like for Thomas Jefferson. A good school, elite, superior, academically. And the claim, of course, was, Asian Americans are hurt here, so let's sue them, sue the school district for discrimination. No. School has a right to have, especially a public school, has a right to have a certain amount of diversity. They can define that. And to achieve that, they have to have the freedom and ability to do that. So that's a TJ case. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and Thomas Jefferson always acclaimed. And I even went to the all academic school here in California, Lowell High School in San Francisco, which similar to TJ. You know, every city has one. Bronx High School of Science in New York, Stuyvesant in New York, another academic magnet. And it's getting to the point where we don't know what's right because we just don't know how the Supreme Court is going to act. And then if they don't act, then of course then people sue and then they move up the chain. But I think the Supreme Court knows what it did with the Harvard case, and it doesn't want to do anymore. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't do anymore. And Asian Americans shouldn't feel like they're discriminated against just because a school is already 40, 50% Asian. And a public school should have greater diversity when certain groups are overrepresented. This is a tough one because I used to say, well, maybe all schools should be as good as the top academic magnet. And then we wouldn't have to worry because all schools would have that kind of equity and people would have the same kind of access to knowledge. That's the ideal thing. Of course, we know that's not true. You won't have the same competition from other smart students. You won't have the same teachers. You'll have different teachers. You won't have the same experience. You might learn the same basic facts, but your experience may not be the same. It will never be the same if, you know, teachers are so individualistic. Curriculums are standard, but, you know, you can take English Lit from one teacher. It's so different an experience from another. Same's true with math. Teaching is a skill. Maybe we should work on hiring better teachers who reach everybody, not just the elite, not just, you know, those college bound, but really try to connect with all students. Maybe that's the approach. When we get out of whack in terms of the student body makeup, we should work on better teachers. Maybe that's a way. I mean, I'm just trying to come up with some ideas or a solution because they've been arguing this. I was reading a piece I did on affirmative action. I did for one of the San Francisco papers. And I was looking at the date, the byline, 2002, 22 years ago. And we were arguing about it before then, in the 90s, the 80s. And we haven't quite gotten it right yet. All right. I don't know. So that's it. I should mention that the PETA podcast dropped today. You should listen to it. It's on an anti-speciesist play that I have a small role in. It's called not the conductor. It's called the Shine Challenge 2024. And it's a staged reading live that's recorded, and you can buy tickets at the nuyorican.org, NUYORICAN.org. And at the Nuyorican, you can buy a ticket. They'll get a link. You can watch it as many times as you want until, I know there's a time limit, but the time limit goes into March. But it's an interesting story about the Titanic. And while we're in African American History Month, I bet you didn't know this, that there was this ballad or a tale, an oral tale, they called them toasts, that were passed on in the African American community from the days of the Titanic through the 40s and 50s. And Langston Hughes heard it. And he put it down on paper, like 30 lines, on the sinking of the Titanic. And Ishmael Reed, noted playwright, author, he said, this is a story I remembered as a little kid. And I talked to some younger people, and they didn't even know about Shine, the character S. Shine. And maybe all they knew was Leonardo DiCaprio and the Titanic. I am the king of the world, right? But this is a rich part of Asian, or rather African American history that is, I think it's a fascinating way that it's been passed on. And now it's passed on in this play that features animals as the moral exemplars, the key witnesses, animals. And I thought, man, I have never seen anything so directly anti-speciesist ever in a piece of art. I mean, I don't know. Mother Goose? Would that be anti-speciesist and pro-woman? I don't know. I and then when you think about how animals, how they're treated, and how African Americans are treated as subhuman, as animals, I mean, there's a kind of a natural way of saying these, because you can say the same thing about the Native American cultures. They have relationships with animals. At least that's what Ishmael told me. I mean, these cultures have relationships with animals that are different, that are, that speak to an anti-speciesist notion, that sees a kind of empathy amongst us all beings, all living beings. So anyway, check it out. It's on wherever you podcast, VP to podcast, and then check out the play, The Shine Challenge, because it is an interesting satirical play that has been concocted by the great novelist, author, playwright, poet, satirist, Ishmael Reed. All right, so we've done all. We talked about the dirty joke, the example of a racist joke. If you missed that, you can go back to the beginning. But basically, I was watching something, and a Korean comedian was telling a joke about abortion. He said, "I think abortion is pretty cool. Men have been killing things for years. It's time the ladies took a crack at it to and start with fetuses and work their way up to Filipinos." See, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It struck me as odd. Now, he's Korean. If he said, and then work their way up to Koreans, that might have been funnier. I don't know. But I'm not trying to I'm not trying to censor. This is called debate. We're debating. This is a sane way to. I'm not canceling anybody. We're debating. All right. One last look at my calendar for the shows I'm doing. Hey, this kind of snuck up on me. I haven't really publicized this a lot, if at all, but my shows are coming up at the Rogue Festival, the Fresno Rogue Festival, Saturday, March 2nd at 2 p.m., Saturday, March 2nd at 9:30 p.m. Oh, that's a quick turnaround. And then Sunday, March 3rd at 2 p.m. Oh my God, I'm just going to be thinking about my show. Thursday, March 7th at 5:30 p.m. and then Saturday, March 9th at 5 p.m. Check it out. The Fresno Rogue Rogue Festival. Go to roguefestival.org. Tickets very reasonable. $15. Come on, 15. Buy out the house. Yeah. Give out tickets to your friends. I'm at the Lotus Room on Olive Street. So check it out. And then I'm going to be at the New York City Fringe April 5th, 8th, April 8th, April 13th, 19th, and 21st. New York City Fringe under St. Mark's Theater. And then in Orlando, I'll get you the details once they're announced in May. So I'm doing a lot of theater, a lot of one-man shows. I thought I'd do a little stand-up, as part of the show. So that's why I did the thing at the Hollywood Improv. And if you missed that last Sunday in LA, catch one of my shows. Live. You'll say, God, he's a lot bigger than I thought, bigger than a Zoom screen. All right, that's it. We do a little meditation. We meditate, close our eyes, try to let things pass, let things go, not be agitated. I'm telling you, meditating has helped me deal with a lot of the bad jokes I've heard about Filipinos. See my Shane Gillis column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, or just Google my name and Shane Gillis, and you'll see my column. And 27 million Asian Americans. He should have a penance of 27 million our fathers and 27 million Hail Marys, don't you think? I mean, 5 years. Too soon. Too soon. All right, we meditate. We put out the love. Love. Nothing but love. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kitov.